Today I get to fit the timing chain, close up the left hand side cover, set the camshaft timing and get on with it. So we're back on the job today with this timing chain and chain guides, new chain guides to fit. The cover's been temporarily placed back on the motor, settle the gasket in. Cylinder head's been fitted up just to check that all the parts are ready to go together. The stator and the flywheel is not in here. That'll be fitted when I get that cover off. Cylinder head off and feed the chain through, put the guides in. That's the new timing chain. Shoved through there and around the sprocket on the crankshaft. This is the new chain guide, one of them. It slots in there, and this round section here fits on the top of the jug there, and it goes down and the end of it locates in this J section at the bottom, which I've always wondered what that was for. I don't think I've had flywheel off with the cylinder still attached. I haven't seen a chain guide stick through like that. I hadn't noticed that this 246 cubic centimeters is printed on the side of the jug. The jug on this bike has not been released at all. These 10mm bolts there are holding that side of the jug down. Obviously the main hold down is the 4 stud bolts coming, cylinder head studs that come right through. That now is ready internally there for me to add the starting gear, the starting pinion there, and the flywheel with its sprag clutch back on the shaft there, and I will sit the bearings on these shafts. I had them off so that when I had the cover sitting on, there was nothing really holding the cover on except the friction between the dowels that were here and here, and there's a little bit of friction on that change lever. I'm ready to put some things back in there. Dale questioned whether, I don't know what he was talking about, somehow modifying these chain guides because you couldn't get them in, but you don't have to take the jug off to get the guide in. It just sits in that cutout there. You do have to have the cylinder head off to fit that chain guide. The other chain guide fits in above the cylinder head. I'm just having a close look at this flywheel. I haven't really examined it closely in the past. That patch on the side there is where the Hall effect sensor on the stator picks up the position of the flywheel and works out when to fire the spark plug. This mark here is top dead center. That's what you see through the little hole, the little T, when you look through this side plug here. Other information around the Denso Japan. It's obviously a product that Suzuki buys in, like most of the electrics. There's a direction of rotation arrow there. Magnets inside, there's 4 separate segments. This one, sometimes you see them with cracks in the magnets. This one's quite clean and the magnets are all, you can see the pale lines between the segments in the magnet, which are the north and south poles, showing up. I lashed out and bought a new original OEM cylinder head gasket. I have used ones in the past without any problems. Put a new one on this time. Got a new chain. I've cleaned up that face there. Happy with how it's looking. I've got the side cover all mounted. I haven't got an oil seal for below here yet, so it'll still sit up and I won't screw that cup down. But otherwise That's all looking good in there. So let's go ahead and put this new cylinder head gasket on. The cylinder head's ready to go on. I've got the new gasket sitting there. I've got a fairly clean surface on the cylinder head. I've got the two dowels in place. Run a chaser over the threads there just to make sure everything's going to screw up without half clamping it down and finding out it's a problem. I have the timing mark in there on top dead center. The cam needs to be timed so that that little mark there and there is level across here with the casting. There's a little U shape on the top there that should be pointing at 12 o'clock, and this pin is just off 12 o'clock. So that's the position the sprocket's got to go on. So you've got to sort of put the sprocket inside the chain, sit it on the camshaft. That's a little bit of a fiddle. That's what I'm doing next. I can't do it holding the phone. I've taken the camshaft away and just put the sprocket on the chain. This is my first guess. This hole here is the alignment pin, which is just off the 12 o'clock position. That's my first guess. I'm going to try and slot I can lift this up, and I've got to put it down over the end of the camshaft, and hopefully that hole lines up with the pin, and the two marks on the end of the cam line up across here. My first attempt at lining that up was perfect. You can see those two marks are in line with the top of the casting, and this pin is just off 12 o'clock because that little U shape on there is 12 o'clock. So I had the chain inside the sprocket on the tooth that made that alignment pin look like it was just off 12 o'clock, and it actually has to be out a fair way for it to be a whole tooth out of whack. Anyway, so I'm not too surprised that it worked first time. There's the timing mark. And there's the horizontal marks that line up with the case. So now it's time to just put the tensioner in. The cam chain tensioner, well, I've got the screw out the back of it at the moment, can fit both ways and screw on, covering the hole. Looks fine in both directions. I went into the book and it says it goes this way with the large part of the lobe on the outside facing the top. That's the ratchet pawl facing the top of the head. That's the way it goes. I'll screw that in and put the bolt in, the cap in behind it, which tensions it up. I'm ready to put the valve cover on now. I haven't put the tensioner spring in there because when you push that in, it tends to lift this end of the camshaft a little bit, if you roll it over. So I'm going to get the lid on first and then put the tensioner in so that it doesn't click in too far, tighten the chain too much, because this is if this lifts, because that pulls down, when this is pushed down by the lid, it's going to tighten the chain too much and the tensioner won't release because it ratchets tight there as it goes. May seem like a strange place to stop this episode. I put a bit of gasket goo on the valve cover, torqued it down, ready to set the valves tomorrow. So get out to your shed and have some fun.